Welcome to this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live, the show that ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Kerry Barrett. She is a speaking and on camera communications coach, and she turns lawyers and executives into compelling and powerful speakers. And she is the founder of the VIQ Academy. Welcome to the show, Kerry.
Thank you for having me, AJ. It's great to be here.
You are welcome to the show, Kerry. You are welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are talking right now. We'll be talking to you about the art of public speaking. So, Kerry, I'm intrigued. You teach lawyers and executives, especially lawyers, about speaking, about this training on the art of speaking. Lawyers speak too much already. So why do they need to get trained by you? I want to understand. I'm just joking, but I need to understand, why do lawyers need to be trained when they are speaking a lot in front of the judges themselves?
Sure. Well, the interesting thing is actually the model of lawyering, if you will, has changed. Most lawyers don't actually spend a lot of time in the courtroom anymore, between settlements and arbitration and mediation and agreements. Most of them don't actually ever make it into the courtroom, at least not on a regular basis. So those skills in large part are sort of rusty, meaning they don't use them very often. But beyond that, while a lawyer is good, let's assume, at arguing a case in front of a judge or a jury, that's a very different kind of communication than they would be delivering if they were on a media opportunity, or if they were on a podcast, or if they were doing a client pitch, or if they were using, let's say, a webinar for client and lead generation. And the reason that it's different is for a number of reasons. Number one, lawyers are very often used to doing or having sort of adversarial communications, meaning they are arguing, or they're an adversary to whomever is on the receiving end of their communication. That's not the case when you're doing a webinar for sales or marketing or visibility. It is also one of the other things that they have a tendency to fall in the habit of doing is speaking within the language of their expertise. So they use legalese. They use a lot of lawyer speak. Well, for somebody who's not in the legal industry, but may be interested in hiring them to represent them individually or their business, they need to be able to understand what you're saying. And if they don't understand what a lawyer is talking about because the language is so removed from what they're used to, they're going to feel stupid, is usually what happens, and then they're going to tune them out. So lawyers actually tend to be pretty bad public speakers and pretty bad on camera as well, because they are used to being just delivering information and not recognizing that when they're using communication to build visibility or inspire change or action or bring in clients or establish themselves as thought leaders, it's an entirely different kind of communication. That's where they struggle.
Right. And is it a struggle to teach them, because they can ask many questions, and they can, because it's almost like then somebody who knows about public speaking but in a different format, and now you have to teach them about different format with the camera in there. So how do you get them started? Are lawyers also anxious like you were once? I will come to your story, from being anxious in your classroom to being a news anchor for many years. I'll come to that, but first, about the anxiety of lawyers. Are your lawyer students, are they also anxious in front of the camera?
They are probably for different reasons. Yes, they may have fears and they may not understand the skills of delivering to a camera very well, but lawyers are also in a not entirely unique arena, but they tend to put a lot of pressure on themselves to have all of the answers, to know everything, and to get all the answers right. And the truth is that none of us know all the answers all of the time, but that is another trait that is not unique to lawyers, but is very prevalent in that population that adds additional stress. There is a very real fear of being looked at as someone who is not credible within the industry by their peers. And it creates a whole nother level of anxiety. And there's also, especially for younger lawyers, they're not taught, seasoned lawyers are not taught as well, the business development. They're taught how to practice law, but there's no understanding of business development or marketing or sales or those sorts of communication techniques or avenues. And so they have a tendency to feel sort of imposter syndrome, but again, don't want to admit that because it seems like everybody else has got it all figured out. So there's a number of different layers that go into making this a particularly challenging skill set for lawyers to develop. There are also a lot of big egos in that industry as well. People who are used to having other people around them who are yes men and women. Yes, that's the right thing to do. Yes, that looks great. Yes, you've done that perfectly. When really they need somebody to guide them in a way that they can accept and take in to the correct or a more authentic way of speaking and communicating for visibility, client generation, and awareness. So usually when a lawyer comes to me, they're already aware that they struggle with this particular challenge, and that's why they've reached out. Or the other thing that happens is that their manager or their assistant will message me and say, our lawyers have a book launch, for example, coming up, and there's going to be media that goes along with that. We need to create a series of video assets, video collateral for marketing and sales. They're going to be hosting webinars, and I know that they're not ready for all of that, but I don't know how to get them ready for it. Can you help them get ready for it? And so it's usually from one of those two groups that reaches out and they're aware of it. There's a whole other group of people that are in the legal industry who are not at all aware of it, and it takes a little bit longer to educate them, to sort of bring them into the fold. Most of them could use a little bit of help, though. Not all, but most.
Right, Kerry. So, what are the questions generally that lawyers ask, and what is it that they want to mostly do with all this training? That will give some insight into how they perceive all this, media, video, and this training as.
Yeah. Well, they're ultimately looking to use this skill for business development, meaning they want to get in front of more people. They want to position themselves as thought leaders. They want to be sort of the industry gold standard in their area of practice. And they want to use speaking and on-camera communication to host educational webinars or have speaking engagements where they can get in front of potential clients and spread awareness of what they do and how they do it. So for most of my clients, that means that they are looking to appear on network or cable news. They are national or even international, CNN. They are looking to, again, create video for a specific media campaign, a book launch or something like that. They are looking to host a webinar with a lot of potential, very high ticket, multi-seven-figure clients in front of them, and they want to host a good webinar to not only bring them there, but also keep them there so that they can inspire them to make the call, sign up as whatever the next step is that they want them to do. So it's really about learning how to communicate well so that you have all of these different ways that you can leverage that skill set for client acquisition and business development. That's basically what it comes down to. The other thing that is throwing an additional challenge in there is the advent of AI, right? It's been around for a while, but over the past year, it has grown exponentially. And lawyers and law firms are now looking at whether the model of billable hours, which is how it works in the United States, right? It takes, you're on a retainer for this many hours and this is how much it's going to cost. Well, very soon, those hours are going to shrink drastically because AI can do in a couple of seconds what it took an associate or a paralegal or even a senior partner hours or days or sometimes even weeks or months to do. So the billable hours are shrinking, which means they're going to need to change things in a couple of ways. Either they're going to have to do away with billable hours and focus on a project sort of pricing model, or they're going to have to figure out how to bring in and serve more clients because it's taking them less time to handle each client's individual needs. So if they're going to be bringing in more clients, which is, I guess, how most of them are going to be handling this, they need to figure out how to get in front of more people so that they can bring more clients in, because AI is coming for everybody. And in the billable hour space, and this doesn't just apply to lawyers, it applies to any sort of agency or firm environment, whether it's a marketing agency or a public relations agency, et cetera. Anybody that works under a billable hours model, AI is changing that. And you're going to have to figure out how to get in front of more people more effectively and more efficiently so that you can bring more people in and make up for the time that you're losing.
Absolutely, absolutely, Kerry. The fear of losing all this business can make one more anxious than the fear of getting in front of the camera. Because now with this sort of information, clients will only ask for much more specific information or understanding of things. A lot of that can be done by the artificial intelligence itself or someone junior within their office, and then they will have more questions to ask to the lawyers as to, because they will already be informed on many various aspects of their case.
Absolutely. And law firms, at least here in the United States, are creating their own individual AI platforms that are within their firm. So any sort of research that they need to do that would be under a billable hours model, for example, I need to look at previous cases that we have argued about this, or I have to look at, how we structured this past case, or, all of the casework across the board that has been done or filed in this particular realm. Those things that would have taken hours and days and weeks, and again, maybe months to research, all it takes is a couple of prompts into, AI or a chat or generative AI, and it can spit back out at you tables, information, data, statistics, and not just that, but then summarize it as well. So you have a summary for the client or whoever needs it. Also, it again reduces the billable hours model extravagantly, exponentially.
Right. Now let's understand your journey in terms of anxiety. There was once at one point in time, a lot of people are anxious. Even I am anxious even before getting onto any podcast like this. But then you have to deal with experience. So, but when you started, when you had those moments of anxiety, and then you looked at solving that for yourself, how did you do that? How did you then get down to not only dealing with that, but getting on to being a news anchor and forget about just your classmates, but speaking in front of the world day in and day out? What I want to understand that technique, that sort of a thing that others can also learn for themselves.
Absolutely. And when I work with clients, this is something we work with very, very often. Some of them are not nervous, really, not debilitatingly nervous anyway. And they just need to understand the skills and change some mindset and practice, and then they're okay with it. But most people have a very deep-seated fear or feeling of inadequacy when it comes to speaking in front of an audience, whether they're on a lens or they're up on a stage or behind a podium. And it's, I mean, most people hate it, and most people are not very good at it either. So the two things go hand in hand. For me, when I realized that I wanted to work in the news industry, I had a number of different resources available to me. So not only had I done, 3 internships, meaning I had, basically volunteered for college credits at 3 news organizations. I had 6 years, both bachelor's and master's degrees, studying communications, and I had guidance from my professors. But then when I actually went into the industry, not only did I have mentors and bosses and managers who would help me learn and hone my skills, but we also had coaches and consultants that were part of our professional development as well. So I had guidance. The biggest thing for me, though, was I had to do it every single day. Every single day, I had to get on TV and I had to tell a story, right? I had to deliver the news. And for me, that was like something it's like exposure therapy. Each time you do it, it gets a little less scary because your body begins to recognize and your mind begins to recognize that this isn't a life or death moment, right? That's how our bodies sort of view it, that fight or flight thing where we freak out. But then we realize with little bits each day that it's not life or death. And then the anxiety begins to dial down, and then we can practice building the skills. It's not exactly the same for everybody. And when I work with people, part of what goes into crafting their curriculum is understanding what their past experiences are, what their specific challenges are, what their goals are, what this would look like and feel like if everything was working and they were able to not only develop these skills, but also fully leverage them. And when we go into all of that, then I can create something that is bespoke, custom to them so that it deals with whatever that challenge is. So I'd love to say, you do this, this, and this, and then it's all figured out, but it's unique to each person. And that's part of where my skills come in, because I've done this now for 25 years and I understand how to do it very effectively and very efficiently.
Right, right, Kerry. But you say that my fear of public speaking wasn't rational.
Yeah.
When did you realize this about this? And if you knew it was not rational, means our mind works very differently. We continue with having the same thing in spite of knowing that this is not rational or irrational for us. How tell us about this part.
So it is interesting. I mentioned a little bit about the sort of the fight or flight response, and it goes back to there's a history that's involved with how these spheres develop, and it goes back to it's centuries or millennia old, and it's when we were still living in caves and everything was a life or death environment. So when we're up on a stage, our body goes into that fight or flight mode. And here's where it ties back to. If we were living in a cave with our, cave men and women friends, the goal every single day was to not die, right? It was to fill your belly, and not get eaten by a saber-toothed tiger or, a woolly mammoth or whatever dinosaur, whatever was around the corner. And so the way that you did that was you were quiet. When you left the cave to go hunting or to go down to the creek or whatever it was to drink or bathe or whatever, you were quiet. You didn't get up on the horizon and make a bunch of big noises and move your arms all around, because when you did that, all the predators saw you and then you became the prey. And not only that, not only did you attract the attention of predators, you also angered your fellow cave people, because now you've also drawn the predators' attention to them. So both sides hate you. Or the predators like you, your family hates you, is basically how it goes down. So when you're up on a stage or you're in front of the camera, it's the same thing as being on the horizon and outside of the cave and making these big noises and these, loud, big gestures, because our mind views the audience as the predator. Our mind views the audience as the saber-toothed tiger. And so when people get up on a stage, you'll find, or in front of a camera, even somebody who's very good at communicating one-on-one, and they're very engaging, and they can make you laugh or smile and make you feel something, they have a tendency to shrink energetically, because they don't recognize that this is what's happening, but they don't want to make big noises. They don't want to make, big gestures. And so they get small, they sit still, their voice gets quiet, they speak in a monotone, all of the things that you shouldn't do when you're trying to get visibility by going up on a stage. But it ties back to what is sometimes called our lizard brain or our reptilian brain. It's just designed to keep us safe. Everything the ego does is designed to keep us safe, and it ties back to our experiences millennia ago that's now sort of just baked into our DNA or the way that we work.
Absolutely. There is much to learn from you, Kerry, and I'm sure a lot of people, especially lawyers, would like to learn from you, all those executives. So what is the best way for them to know more about you and to engage with you professionally?
Oh, thank you so much. Well, the easiest thing to do is to go to either my website, which is kerrybarrett.com, or go to my LinkedIn profile. Again, linkedin.com /in/Kerry Barrett, KerryBarrett. And on my profile, you will find everything you need: my newsletter, links to my podcast, links to sign up for a free strategy call, content, ways that I can help you. Even if you're not ready to pay, grab a couple of free resources and start your journey there. But that's the best way to get a hold of me, is connect with me on LinkedIn. And then if you'd like to book a call or chat, use the link there to do so.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you.